Admiral Krell slammed his 4 fists on the council table, making the holographic display flicker. His voice echoed through the chamber where representatives from 47 different species sat in rising circular tiers. Each delegate watched the tall Vostian warrior with a mixture of respect and fear. Krell had earned his position through blood and fire, fighting in more wars than most species had recorded in their entire histories. "Humans," he said, his mandibles clicking with contempt. "Always talking, never fighting. You want to discuss the Ravager threat? Let me show you what humanity contributes to our defense." The central hologram shifted, displaying battle footage from the last 6 Ravager encounters. In each one, human ships appeared in the formation. In each one, those same ships retreated behind the front lines within minutes of contact. The other species murmured among themselves. Some had suspected this pattern, but seeing it laid out so clearly brought shame to the human delegation. Diana Ross sat perfectly still in the human section. Her uniform was neat, her short hair pulled back, her hands folded on the armrest. She had served 20 years in the Earth Defense Forces before accepting this diplomatic posting. She knew combat. She knew sacrifice. And she knew exactly what Krell was doing. "Soft-worlders," Krell continued. "That is what we call them in Vostian. Species that evolved on paradise planets where food falls from trees and predators are small enough to step on. They come to the galaxy expecting the same easy life. When real danger arrives, they run." Ambassador Patel, the senior human diplomat, rose from his seat. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. "Admiral Krell, our ships withdraw to provide medical support and supply coordination. This strategy has been approved by only strategy?" Krell's laugh was harsh. "You mean cowardice dressed in pretty words? While Vostian warriors die holding the line, human ships retreat to safe distances. You contribute medicine and food rations like civilians, not soldiers." Diana's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. Around the chamber, other species looked away from the human section, some with pity, others with agreement. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 30 years ago. They were still the newcomers, still trying to prove themselves, and this was not helping. Krell pulled up another image. This time it showed a collection of human artifacts. Swords, axes, spears, knives of various designs. "Did you know," he said, "that humans still keep these primitive weapons? Not in museums. In military vaults. They actually maintain them, sharpen them, preserve them like treasures." Several species laughed. The idea of keeping melee weapons in an age of plasma rifles and antimatter warheads seemed absurd. "They cling to the past," Krell said, "to a time before they had real weapons, before they joined civilized space. These blades represent what humans were, scattered primitives fighting over dirt and water. Is it any wonder they cannot stand against the Ravagers? They have no predator instinct, no killer nature. They are prey pretending to be hunters. High Chancellor Bryn, a Quellan whose species had been mediating galactic disputes for 3,000 years, raised a tentacle for silence. "Admiral Krell, your concerns are noted. However, personal attacks on member species are not personal attacks." Krell turned his 4 eyes toward Bryn. "I state facts. The Ravagers grow bolder. They board ships and tear through security forces in the corridors. They fight in close quarters where human retreat tactics are useless. We need warriors who can look death in the eye and strike back. Humans are not those warriors. They should focus on support roles and leave fighting to species actually designed for it." Diana stood up. The movement was smooth, controlled, military precise. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She was not tall compared to most species present, not armored like Krell, not impressive in any physical way, but something in how she moved made the room fall quiet. "Admiral," she said, her voice calm, "have you ever seen a human fight for something they truly love?" Krell's mandibles clicked in amusement. "I have seen humans fight for comfort and safety. I have seen them fight to avoid danger. I have not seen them fight for anything with real conviction." Diana nodded slowly. "Then you have not really seen us fight at all. Bold words from a species that runs from battle. We withdraw our ships because we value life, even the lives of species that mock us." Diana looked directly at Krell. "But if you want to see what humans can actually do, I request a formal combat demonstration at the next session." The chamber erupted in surprised chatter. Combat demonstrations were rare but not forbidden. They were usually reserved for settling disputes about military capability or testing new weapons. For a human to challenge a Vostian warrior seemed suicidal. Krell's expression shifted to something close to joy. You wish to demonstrate human combat ability? Against what? Holographic targets? Training drones? The standard military simulation, Diana said. The same one you used to earn your rank. Same difficulty, same rules, same scoring system. Ambassador Patel grabbed Diana's arm. Captain Ross, this is not necessary. We can resolve this through proper channels. Diana gently pulled her arm free. With respect, Ambassador, proper channels have not stopped the insults. Perhaps it is time we show the Council what humanity actually is instead of what they assume we are. Krell laughed, the sound booming through the chamber. I accept. This will be educational for everyone. We will finally see what humans are capable of when they cannot run away. Agreed, Diana said. 1 week from today. I will need that time to make arrangements. High Chancellor Bryn looked between them. If both parties consent, the demonstration is approved. 1 week. Standard combat simulation protocols. Non-lethal holographic enemies. Scored on efficiency, tactics, and threat elimination. Diana bowed slightly to the Chancellor, then to Krell. Thank you for this opportunity, Admiral. It will be enlightening. As the session adjourned, Diana walked calmly from the chamber. Other human delegates followed her, confused and worried. Only when they reached the private human section did Ambassador Patel speak. What are you doing, Captain? Krell is a decorated warrior. He has fought in actual wars. You cannot possibly— I need to send a message to Earth, Diana interrupted. Priority 1 military encryption. What message? Diana's expression was cold and focused. Request permission to open the vault. Patel's face went pale. Diana, no. Those weapons are sealed for a reason. If you show them what we really are— They already think they know what we are, Diana said. Cowards, weaklings, prey. Maybe it is time we remind them why humans put those weapons away in the first place. She walked to the communication station and began typing. The message was brief. The response from Earth Defense Command took less than an hour. Diana read it and closed her eyes briefly. Permission granted, she whispered. Across the galaxy on Earth, in a bunker deep beneath what used to be Geneva, General Hayes stood before a massive vault door. Behind him, military commanders exchanged worried glances. The door had not been opened in 20 years. Inside lay weapons from every human culture, every human war, every human conflict dating back 10,000 years. Hayes entered the access code. The vault door began to open with a deep grinding sound. Cool air rushed out carrying the scent of oil and metal and history. She wants to show them the blade, Hayes said quietly. God help us all. In her quarters on Council Station, Diana sat alone. On her desk lay a single photograph. Her grandmother, wearing a military uniform from a war fought on Earth decades ago. Behind her grandmother hung a sword, a family heirloom passed down through generations. Diana remembered her grandmother's words. We carry these not because we want to use them, but because we remember what it cost to put them down. She closed her eyes and began to mentally prepare. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. Soft, weak, peaceful. They were right about the peaceful part. Humans had chosen peace, but choice and capability were not the same thing. In 1 week, she would show them the difference. Admiral Krell in his quarters reviewed the combat simulation parameters. He smiled. This would be good for morale. The other species needed to see that the Vaustians were the real warriors of the galaxy. Humanity would provide a useful contrast. He never stopped to wonder why a human captain would volunteer for public humiliation. He never asked himself what Diana knew that he did not. He simply assumed that soft-worlders could not understand real combat. That assumption would cost him more than he could imagine. 20 years earlier, on the colony world of New Hebrides, a young girl sat in her grandmother's garden. The air smelled of earth and growing things. Diana was 12 years old and had just finished her first year of basic education. Her grandmother, a woman with silver hair and gentle hands, brought out a long wooden box. Your great-great-grandfather carried this in a war, the old woman said. His grandfather carried it before him, and now I give it to you. Inside the box lay a sword. The blade was curved, the steel dark with age but still sharp. Diana had touched it carefully, feeling the weight of history in the metal. Why keep it? Diana had asked. We have plasma weapons now. We have ships that can crack planets. Why keep an old sword? Her grandmother had smiled sadly. Because we need to remember what it cost us to put it down. Humans spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other with these. When we finally stopped, we promised ourselves we would never forget why we stopped. Diana had not understood then. She understood now. The shuttle dropped her at Earth's primary spaceport 3 days after the council session. She traveled alone, refusing escorts or ceremony. The transport to Geneva took an hour. The elevator down to the military archive took another 20 minutes. With each level deeper, Diana felt the weight of what she was about to do. General Hayes waited for her at the vault entrance. He was older now, his hair white, his face lined with the burden of command. He had been her training officer 15 years ago. He had taught her that being a soldier meant more than knowing how to fight. It meant knowing when to fight and when to hold back. "Diana," he said quietly, "are you sure about this?" "No," she admitted. "But it needs to be done." Hayes nodded and placed his hand on the biometric scanner. The vault was sealed after the Unification Wars. Humanity decided that if we were going to join the galaxy as a peaceful species, we needed to lock away the tools of our violent past. Not destroy them, lock them away. Because we knew we might need them again someday. The massive door swung open. Inside, the vault stretched further than Diana could see. Rows upon rows of weapons, each carefully preserved, each labeled with its origin and history. She walked slowly down the aisles, reading the names. Viking axes, Roman gladius swords, Japanese katanas, Sulu assegai spears, Aztec macuahuitl clubs, Aboriginal boomerangs designed to kill, not return. Every human culture, every human civilization, every human tribe had contributed something to this collection. "We were very good at making things that kill," Hayes said softly. Every society independently without contact developed advanced melee weapons. We fought animals that could tear us apart. We fought each other over land and food and beliefs. For 10,000 years we perfected the art of close combat. Diana stopped before a display of simple knives. Hunting knives, fighting knives, utility blades. Nothing fancy, nothing decorative. Just tools designed to cut and stab efficiently. The Vostians evolved on a world of lava fields, Hayes continued. They are strong because their environment made them strong. But they never faced predators. They were always the biggest, toughest things on their planet. Same with most species in the galaxy. They evolved as apex predators from the beginning. But not us, Diana said. No, not us. Earth had saber-toothed cats that could bite through our skulls. Cave bears that weighed half a ton. Crocodiles longer than a shuttle. We had to invent weapons just to survive dinner, and when we ran out of animals to fight, we fought each other. Diana reached out and picked up a seax, a simple Viking utility blade. It was barely a foot long, single-edged with a worn leather grip. Nothing about it looked impressive, but she could feel the balance, the purpose in its design. "Why this one?" Hayes asked. "Because it is honest," Diana said. The Vikings who carried these were not professional soldiers. They were farmers and fishermen who kept a blade at their side because the world was dangerous. They did not carry it to look impressive. They carried it because they might need it. Hayes smiled slightly. "You sound like your grandmother." "She taught me well." Diana turned the blade over in her hands. "The galaxy sees our diplomatic nature and thinks we are weak. They do not understand that we chose to be peaceful. They think peace is our default state. But it is not. No, our default state is survival. We spent millennia doing whatever it took to survive. We learned to make fire, to create tools, to work together, and we learned to kill anything that threatened us. Other humans included." Diana looked at Hayes. "That is what I need to show them. Not that we are violent, but that we chose to put violence aside, and that choice required strength, not weakness." Hayes was quiet for a moment. "When you show them this, everything changes. They will stop seeing us as the harmless newcomers. They will see us as we really are." "Good, because the Ravagers do not care about our image. They board ships and kill everyone. They fight in corridors and tight spaces where our retreat tactics do not work, and they are winning because the other species never learned to fight that way. But we did." Diana nodded. "Every human child learns basic hand-to-hand combat in school. We tell them it is for fitness and discipline, but really it is because we remember. We remember what happens when humans forget how to defend themselves. It never ends well." She took the seax and attached it to her belt. "The weight felt natural, right? I need to train. I have 1 week to remember everything my body used to know." Hayes led her to a training facility deeper in the archive. The room was empty except for practice dummies and open floor space. Diana removed her jacket and began stretching. Her muscles protested at first, but memory lived in the body as much as the mind. For the next 6 days, Diana trained. She practiced with the SAIAX until her hands blistered and then healed tougher. She ran combat simulations, fighting holographic enemies in every configuration. She studied old recordings of human martial arts, remembering techniques she learned as a cadet but never expected to use. On the 3rd day, a message arrived from her brother. He was serving on New Hebrides, the colony where they grew up. Diana read it twice. Ravager scouts hit the mining operation last night. We held them off using cutting torches and rock hammers. Lost 3 people but killed all the Ravagers. They do not know how to fight humans who fight back. They expect us to run. We did not run. Tell the council we are holding. Tell them we remember how to survive. Diana saved the message and continued training. Her brother and the other colonists were out there fighting with improvised weapons, and the galaxy thought humans were weak. That would change soon. On the 6th day, General Hayes brought her news. Krell has been talking. He is very confident about the demonstration. He expects to eliminate twice as many targets as you. He is already planning his victory speech. Let him plan, Diana said, practicing a strike sequence. Confidence is not always earned. The simulation will be broadcast to the entire council. Billions will watch. If you fail, I will not fail. Diana stopped and looked at Hayes. Humans have been underestimated before. We survived anyway. Sometimes being underestimated is an advantage. Hayes smiled. Your grandmother said the same thing once. After she won a combat tournament against opponents who thought she was too old to fight. She taught me that too. Diana sheathed the SAIAX. Being underestimated means your enemies do not prepare properly. They assume victory, and assumptions get you killed. On the 7th day, Diana stood in the vault one last time before leaving. She walked among the weapons, touching blades and spears and clubs. Each one represented a human who decided they would not be prey. Each one represented a choice to fight back against a universe that wanted them dead. We are still here, she whispered to the weapons. After all the predators, all the wars, all the attempts to wipe us out, we are still here, because we never stopped fighting for the right to exist. She touched the SAIAX at her belt and turned to leave. Hayes walked with her to the shuttle. What do you think will happen after? Hayes asked. After they see what you can do? Diana looked up at the sky. Either they will respect us or they will fear us. I prefer respect, but I will settle for fear if it keeps them from dismissing us when people need protecting. The shuttle lifted off, carrying Diana back to Council Station. In her quarters on Earth, her grandmother watched the news reports about the upcoming demonstration. The reporters speculated that the human captain was making a mistake, that she would embarrass humanity in front of the galaxy. The old woman smiled and touched the empty space on her wall where the family sword used to hang. Show them, child, she whispered. Show them what we really are. Across the galaxy, on colony worlds and stations and ships, humans paused in their work to watch the countdown to the demonstration. They did not know exactly what Diana planned, but they knew she was one of them. And when humans decided to stop pretending, things got very interesting very quickly. Admiral Krell prepared for the demonstration with casual confidence. He practiced with his plasma blades, showing off for his guards. He already composed the speech he would give after his victory. He would be generous, of course. Humans were not warriors, but they had their uses. Support roles, medical work, supply management. The galaxy needed all types. He never wondered why Diana seemed so calm. He never asked himself what secrets humanity might be hiding. He simply assumed that a species from a peaceful world could not match a Vostian warrior who lived for combat. That assumption was about to cost him everything he thought he knew about humans. The combat arena occupied an entire section of Council Station. Normally it served as a training facility for security forces, but today it had been converted into a demonstration hall. Seating surrounded the central fighting space in rising tiers, and every seat was filled. Representatives from all 47 Council species attended. Billions more watched through live broadcasts across the galaxy. Diana arrived early wearing simple combat gear. Black pants, reinforced boots, a fitted shirt that allowed full movement. No armor, no ceremonial elements, nothing to slow her down. The SAIAX hung at her belt in a plain leather sheath. Several security officers stared at the ancient weapon, confused why someone would bring a knife to a demonstration involving holographic combat. Admiral Krell entered to cheers and applause. His forearms were on full display, each corded with muscle. He wore traditional Vostian warrior armor, dark plates that reflected light like volcanic glass. At each hip hung a plasma blade, the modern weapons humming with barely contained energy. His guards followed him, 12 Vostian warriors who had fought beside him in actual wars. They took positions in the viewing area, already celebrating their commander's inevitable victory. High Chancellor Bryn moved to the center of the arena, tentacles gesturing for silence. The crowd settled, though excitement buzzed through the air like electricity. "Today we witness a demonstration of combat capability," Bryn announced. "Admiral Krell of the Vostian Empire and Captain Diana Ross of Earth's Defense Forces will face identical combat simulations. The parameters are standard military evaluation protocols. Holographic enemies will attack in waves of increasing difficulty. Scoring is based on 3 factors: elimination efficiency, tactical awareness, and damage sustained. Both participants have agreed to these terms." Krell stepped forward, raising all 4 arms. "I dedicate this demonstration to the warriors who actually defend the galaxy. May we always know who stands with us and who stands behind us." The jab at humanity was clear. Several species laughed or clicked approval. Diana said nothing, simply checking the SAAX was secure at her belt. "Admiral Krell will demonstrate first," Bryn continued. "Captain Ross will follow. The computer has randomized enemy patterns so both face equal but different challenges." Krell moved to the center of the arena. He drew both plasma blades, the weapons igniting with a sharp hiss. Blue energy crackled along the edges. He settled into a fighting stance that spoke of decades of training and combat experience. "Begin simulation," Bryn announced. The holographic enemies materialized instantly. They were standard combat drones, the kind used by pirates and raiders across the galaxy. 20 appeared in the first wave, spreading to surround Krell. They were armed with projectile weapons and shock batons. Krell moved like liquid death. His forearms gave him an enormous advantage in close combat. He could block with 2 blades while striking with the other 2. The plasma weapons cut through holographic enemies like light through shadow. Within 30 seconds, all 20 lay deactivated on the ground. The second wave appeared. 40 enemies this time, better armed, more aggressive. Krell adapted his strategy, using mobility to prevent being surrounded. He was fast for his size, and his reach with 4 arms meant he could strike in multiple directions simultaneously. The crowd roared approval as he systematically dismantled the wave. Diana watched carefully. Krell was good, no question. His technique was refined through real combat. He wasted no movement, expended no unnecessary energy. This was a warrior who understood efficiency. The waves continued escalating. 60 enemies, then 80, then 100. Krell began to slow slightly. Even with 4 arms and superior strength, fighting that many opponents took a toll. He took several hits from enemy weapons, though none would be lethal in a real fight. His armor absorbed most impacts. At 8 minutes, Krell finished the final wave. He stood in the center of the arena surrounded by deactivated holograms, breathing heavily but still upright. His score appeared on the display screens. 847 enemies eliminated. 3 significant hits taken. Overall combat efficiency rated as exceptional. The crowd erupted in cheers. Krell's guards shouted victory chants. Other species applauded, impressed by the display. It had been a masterclass in multi-armed combat. Krell bowed to the crowd, then turned to Diana. "Your turn, Captain. Try not to embarrass yourself too badly. I know humans do not have our advantages, but perhaps you can manage half my score." Diana walked to the center of the arena. She rolled her shoulders once, loosening muscles. Her hands hung relaxed at her sides. She did not draw the SAAX yet. "Is that all you brought?" Krell called out. "One small knife? Perhaps you would like to borrow a real weapon." Diana smiled slightly. "This will be sufficient." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Was the human serious? That blade looked like something from a primitive museum. How could it possibly compare to plasma weapons? Bryn raised a tentacle. "Begin simulation." The first wave materialized. 20 holographic enemies, identical to what Krell faced. They spread out, weapons ready, beginning their programmed attack patterns. Diana moved. What happened next shocked every species watching. Diana did not react to the enemies. She predicted them. Before the first hologram could fire, Diana was already in motion, closing the distance faster than seemed possible for her size. The SAAX came out of its sheath in a blur of steel. The blade found the throat of the first enemy. The hologram deactivated. Diana was already moving to the next, her body low, movements economical. She did not swing wild or hack desperately. Each strike was precise, targeted, lethal. Throat, major arteries, joints where armor had gaps. The enemies began firing. Diana was not where their targeting predicted. She moved in patterns that made no sense to species who fought in straight lines, weaving, ducking, using defeated enemies as shields, always closing distance, never stopping. 15 seconds. All 20 enemies down. Not a single hit on Diana. The crowd fell silent. That was faster than Krell, much faster. The second wave appeared, 40 enemies. Diana did not pause, did not catch her breath. She flowed into them like water finding cracks. The SciFi was constant motion, never still, always cutting. An enemy lunged with a shock baton. Diana caught his wrist, redirected the strike into another enemy, and used the momentum to throw both off balance. Her blade opened both their throats before they hit the ground. She disarmed enemies and used their weapons momentarily before discarding them. A plasma rifle fired 3 shots before she tossed it aside, preferring the SciFi. The blade never left her hand for long. It was an extension of her arm, her will, her purpose. The third wave, 60 enemies. Diana adapted instantly. She used the arena environment, ducking behind obstacles, forcing enemies into bottlenecks where numbers became a disadvantage. When she had no cover, she created it from defeated enemies. A holographic body might not be real, but it still blocked line of sight. Krell's guards stopped celebrating. They watched Diana with growing unease. This was not how prey species fought. This was not defensive combat or survival instinct. This was hunting. The waves continued. 80 enemies. 100. Diana's face showed focus, but not strain. Sweat dampened her hair, but her breathing stayed controlled. Every movement had purpose. She wasted nothing. Not energy. Not motion. Not opportunity. The crowd watched in absolute silence now. Species who had dismissed humans as soft-worlders saw something that terrified them on a primal level. Diana was not just efficient. She was relentless. She did not celebrate kills, did not pause to assess. She simply continued, a machine with human features programmed for one purpose: eliminate threats. At 10 minutes, the simulation finally presented its maximum difficulty. 150 enemies, the most it could generate simultaneously. They materialized in a coordinated formation, trained soldiers rather than pirates or raiders. Diana surveyed the arena for 3 seconds. Then she moved. She hit the formation's weak point, the gap between 2 squad units. The SciFi found vital points faster than the holograms could react. She used their own coordination against them, forcing them to check fire to avoid hitting each other. In tight quarters, numbers became liability instead of advantage. An enemy managed to land a strike on her shoulder. The impact registered on the scoring system. Diana did not slow. She used the pain to fuel her focus, channeling it into precise violence. The enemy who hit her fell 2 seconds later. At 15 minutes, Diana stopped. Not because she was tired, though she was breathing hard now. She stopped because there were no more enemies. The arena was silent except for her breathing, and the hum of the holographic system powering down. Her score appeared. 1,243 enemies eliminated. 1 hit taken. Overall combat efficiency rated as exceptional plus, a rating reserved for performances that exceeded standard parameters. Diana sheathed the SciFi with a smooth motion. She turned to face Krell. Her voice was calm, conversational. That was a human fighting for nothing in particular, Admiral. Would you like to see us fight for something we actually love? Krell said nothing. His mandibles hung open. Around the arena, species stared in shock. The human had not just matched the Vaustian warrior. She had exceeded him. With a primitive blade, with techniques that looked ancient but proved devastatingly effective. Ambassador Patel sat in the human section, his face pale. He had known Diana was skilled, but this was beyond anything he expected. Around him, other human delegates looked equally stunned. They had not known. Earth's military kept its combat training classified, and Diana had never spoken about her capabilities. High Chancellor Bryn moved to the center of the arena, visibly shaken. The scores are verified. Captain Ross has achieved a higher elimination count, with fewer hits taken. However, both performances were exceptional. I believe we should discuss how. Krell's voice cut through the arena. He stepped forward, staring at Diana. How did a human do that? Your world is peaceful. You have no major predators. You evolved in paradise. Where did you learn to fight like that? Diana met his gaze steadily. We learned by necessity, Admiral. Earth had predators. Large ones. We hunted animals that could kill us easily. We had no claws, no venom, no natural armor. We had to invent weapons just to survive dinner. And when we ran out of animals to fight, we fought each other. For 10,000 years, we perfected the art of killing with blades because our opponents were exactly as smart as we were. She touched the sayax at her belt. You asked why we keep these weapons. We keep them because we remember what we are. We put them away because we chose peace, but we never forgot how to use them. Krell looked at his plasma blades, then at Diana's simple steel knife. I do not understand. Technology should give advantage. Modern weapons should defeat primitive ones. In open combat, yes, Diana said. But the Ravagers do not fight in open space, Admiral. They board ships. They fight in corridors and tight quarters. Your plasma weapons lose effectiveness in enclosed spaces. Risk of hull breach, of hitting your own people, of collateral damage. But a blade? She drew the sayax again, letting light run along the edge. A blade works anywhere. And humans have 10,000 years of practice using them in close quarters. A delegate from the Thelian Commonwealth stood. Are you saying humans have been hiding this capability? That your entire species can fight this way? Diana shook her head. Not all humans maintain combat training, but enough do. Every colony has security forces trained in close combat. Every ship has crew members who know blade work. We do not advertise it because we hoped we would never need it. She looked around the arena, meeting the eyes of various species. You see us as peaceful and assume we are weak. You are right about the peaceful part. We chose peace. We decided that joining the galaxy meant putting our violent past behind us. But choice and capability are not the same thing. Krell finally found his voice. Why tell us now? Why reveal this? Because the Ravagers do not care about our reputation, Diana said quietly. They board ships and kill people. They fight exactly the kind of combat humans spent millennia perfecting. And they are winning because your species never learned to fight that way. You evolved as apex predators. You never faced something that could kill you easily. You never had to develop the kind of close-quarters combat that decides whether you eat or starve. She sheathed the sayax again. I did not come here to embarrass you, Admiral. I came here to show you what humans can contribute. Not because we want to fight, but because people are dying, and we remember how to stop things that kill people in corridors and tight spaces. The arena remained silent. Every species present was processing what they had witnessed. Humanity had just revealed a capability none of them suspected. The soft-worlders, the diplomatic newcomers, the species that ran from fights had shown combat skills that matched or exceeded the galaxy's premier warriors. And they did it with weapons. 10,000 years old, High Chancellor Bryn called an emergency council session within the hour. The demonstration had raised too many questions to leave unanswered. Every species delegate arrived quickly, their usual political games forgotten in the face of what they had witnessed. Diana sat in the human section, still wearing her combat gear, the sayax once again at her belt. The chamber buzzed with conversation. Species who had ignored humanity for years now stared openly at the human delegation. Some looked curious. Others looked frightened. All looked confused. The soft-worlders were not supposed to be dangerous. Bryn raised multiple tentacles for silence. The Council recognizes the need for clarity. Captain Ross has demonstrated capabilities that surprised us all. However, surprise leads to speculation, and speculation leads to fear. I propose we allow Ambassador Patel to explain the context of what we witnessed. Ambassador Patel rose slowly. He looked older than usual, tired. Diana realized this moment had been coming for years, and her demonstration had simply forced it to arrive sooner. The old diplomat touched a control and a hologram of Earth appeared above the center of the chamber. You call us soft-worlders, Patel began. You look at Earth and see paradise. Abundant water, breathable atmosphere, moderate temperatures, fertile soil. Compared to many homeworlds, Earth is gentle. And you are correct. Earth is paradise. He paused, letting the image rotate. But paradise came at a cost paid in blood over millions of years. The hologram zoomed in, showing various Earth regions, grasslands, forests, jungles, mountains, oceans. Earth was home to megafauna, animals so large and dangerous that they dominated entire ecosystems. Mammoths that could crush you with a step, cave bears that weighed 600 kilograms, saber-toothed cats with fangs longer than your hand, crocodiles 8 meters long, giant short-faced bears that stood 4 meters tall. Images of these creatures appeared, reconstructed from fossil evidence. Several species in the chamber shifted uncomfortably. Those animals looked terrifying even as holograms. Early humans had no natural weapons, Patel continued. No claws, no venom, no thick hide or armor, no size advantage. The average human weighs 70 kilograms. The animals we hunted weighed 10 times that. The predators that hunted us were even larger. A Vostian delegate stood. Then how did you survive? Natural selection should have eliminated such weak prey. We invented weapons, Patel said simply. Not for war, for survival. We created spears to hunt mammoths because getting close enough to club them was suicide. We made knives to butcher animals too dangerous to fight hand-to-hand. Every tool we developed came from necessity. We either became good at making and using weapons or we went extinct. The hologram shifted to show early human hunting parties, reconstructions based on archaeological evidence. Humans with primitive spears surrounding a mammoth working together using tactics. We also developed something else, Patel said. Persistence. We could not outrun predators. We could not overpower prey, but we could keep going. We tracked wounded animals for days. We chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We faced terror and continued anyway because stopping meant death. A Quellan counselor spoke up. This explains survival hunting. It does not explain Captain Ross's combat capabilities. Those were refined military techniques, not primitive survival skills. Patel nodded. You are correct. And that brings us to the uncomfortable part of human history. He took a breath. Humans did not just fight animals. We fought each other. The hologram changed again, showing human civilizations across history. Armies with swords and spears. Warriors with elaborate armor and weapons. Battle formations and siege equipment. For 10,000 years, human tribes and nations fought over resources, territory, beliefs, pride. We developed blade combat into an art form because our opponents were exactly as intelligent as we were. Fighting animals required strength and coordination. Fighting other humans required technique, strategy, deception, and skill. Images flowed past. Roman legions with gladius swords, Viking raiders with axes, samurai with katanas, knights with longswords, Zulu warriors with assegai spears, Persian immortals with scimitars, Scottish clans with claymores. Every human civilization independently developed advanced melee weapons and combat techniques, Patel said quietly. We did not share this knowledge. We did not learn it from each other. We each discovered it because we each needed it to survive against other humans who were just as desperate to survive. Admiral Krell stood, his forearms gesturing in confusion. But why? You said Earth has abundant resources. Why fight over what you have plenty of? Because humans are territorial, Patel said. Because we form tribes and those tribes compete. Because we see differences and fear them. Because we are intelligent enough to rationalize violence and emotional enough to commit it. He looked directly at Krell. We are ashamed of this history, Admiral. We spent 10,000 years perfecting ways to kill each other. When we finally achieved global peace and reached the stars, we decided that chapter of our history was over. We put the weapons away. We sealed them in vaults. We chose to be better. A Thelian delegate spoke, voice uncertain. Then the weapons in your vaults. They are not ceremonial? No, Patel said. They are functional, maintained, sharpened. We keep them operational because we remember what happens when humans forget how to defend themselves. History taught us that lesson repeatedly. Civilizations that forgot how to fight were conquered by those who remembered. Diana stood, drawing everyone's attention. May I add something, Ambassador? Patel nodded, looking relieved to share the burden. Diana touched the sayax at her belt. You asked why we are good with melee weapons. The answer is simple. Necessity bred skill and skill bred survival. On Earth, humans hunted animals that could kill us easily. We used spears against mammoths because we had to eat. We used knives against predators because running was not always an option. Every human culture developed blade weapons because every human culture faced threats that required them. She drew the sayax, holding it up for the chamber to see. This blade is 10 centuries old. Vikings carried them as utility tools and fighting weapons. They used them to clean fish and defend their families. The same tool for both purposes because that was efficient. Humans are very good at efficiency when our survival depends on it. But you evolved on a paradise world, a Quellan counselor insisted. How does paradise create such dangerous creatures? Paradise is relative, Diana said. Yes, Earth has abundant resources. But those resources were guarded by animals that saw humans as food. We were not apex predators by birth. We became apex predators by refusing to accept our place in the food chain. Every meal was earned. Every day alive was a victory against a universe that wanted us dead. She sheathed the sayax. And when we ran out of animals to fight, we fought each other. That is our shame. For thousands of years, humans killed humans over differences in belief, appearance, language, territory. We became incredibly skilled at violence because we practiced on opponents exactly as smart and adaptable as ourselves. The chamber was silent. Every species understood predation. Every species understood territorial disputes. But the scale and duration of human conflict was shocking. How did you stop? Krell asked quietly. How does a species that violent choose peace? We grew tired, Diana said simply. Tired of burying children. Tired of burning cities. Tired of inventing new ways to kill each other. We looked at our history and decided we could be more than our worst impulses. It took thousands of years, but we finally achieved global peace. And when we did, we made a promise. Never forget what we are, but always strive to be better. Ambassador Patel activated another hologram. This one showed human colonies on the frontier. Which brings us to the present situation. The Ravagers attack in ways that other species find difficult to counter. They board ships and fight in corridors. They use tight quarters to neutralize technological advantages. Your plasma weapons risk hull breaches. Your tactics assume open battlefield conditions. The hologram showed footage from New Hebrides colony. Diana's brother and other colonists fighting Ravagers in mine tunnels, using mining tools, construction equipment, anything available. The fighting was brutal, close quarters, desperate, but the humans were winning. Humans on the frontier have been fighting Ravagers for 6 months, Patel said. We did not report it to the council because we handled it. Our colonists used improvised weapons and remembered techniques. In close quarters combat against Ravagers, human victory rate is 73%. Losses are heavy, but we hold our territory. Numbers appeared on the hologram. Combat statistics from a dozen human colonies. Everyone showed the same pattern. Ravagers board ships or attack settlements. Humans engage in close combat. Humans win more often than they lose. Your species avoid boarding actions when possible, Diana said. You developed long-range weapons and prefer space combat. That is logical. That is civilized. But Ravagers do not care about civilization. They fight the way they fight, and you cannot adapt because you never had to learn close-quarters combat. She looked at Krell. You called us weak. You said we lack predator instinct. You were wrong. We have predator instinct. We just chose to suppress it. But the Ravagers are forcing us to remember what we are, and what we are, Admiral, is survivors. We survived Earth, we survived each other, and we will survive the Ravagers. A long silence followed. Species looked at each other, at the humans, at the data showing human combat effectiveness. Everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. The peaceful newcomers, the diplomatic soft-worlders, the species that ran from fights had been quietly winning a war the rest of the galaxy struggled against. Krell stood slowly. All 4 of his arms hung at his sides, no longer aggressive or dismissive. I spoke from ignorance, he said formally. I judged your species by our standards. Faustians evolved on a harsh world, but we were always the strongest things on it. We never faced predators because we were the predators. We do not understand what it means to be prey that became predator through will and skill. He looked at Diana with something like respect. Your people chose to hide your capabilities. Why? Because we wanted you to trust us, Diana said. If we had arrived in the galaxy showing our combat skills, you would have feared us. You would have seen us as a threat. We wanted to be partners, not conquerors, so we emphasized our peaceful nature and our diplomatic skills. Both are genuine. We truly want peace. But wanting peace does not mean we forgot how to fight. A young Thelian delegate asked, What happens now? Now that we know what you are? Diana considered the question carefully. Now you decide. Do you trust that humans have genuinely chosen peace? Do you believe that we can be dangerous and still be trusted? Because that is what we are offering. We will help you fight the Ravagers. We will teach your people close quarters combat if you want to learn. We will stand between you and the things that kill in corridors and tight spaces. But you have to trust that we will only use our skills to protect, not to conquer. High Chancellor Bryn spoke for the first time since the session began. This council was founded on trust between species. Today that trust faces a test. Humanity has revealed capabilities they kept hidden. The question before us is simple. Do we fear them for what they can do, or trust them for what they choose to do? The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species argued for accepting human help. Others worried about the precedent. A few demanded restrictions on human military activity. But underneath all the political maneuvering, everyone understood the same truth. They needed humanity's help, whether they wanted to admit it or not. The Ravagers were winning. Ships were being boarded and captured. Colonies were falling. Traditional tactics were failing, and the only species effectively fighting back was the one everyone had dismissed as weak. Diana sat down, exhausted. Revealing the truth had been necessary, but she knew it changed everything. Humanity could not hide behind its peaceful reputation anymore. From now on, every species would look at humans and wonder what else they were hiding. Trust once broken was hard to rebuild, but at least now maybe they could start fighting back properly. And if that meant humans had to be seen as dangerous to be taken seriously, then so be it. Better to be feared and useful than dismissed and irrelevant. 3 days after the emergency session, Council Station orbited peacefully above the neutral world of Tellus Prime. Inside, delegates continued debates about human combat capabilities and how to integrate them into galactic defense. Outside, in the dark between stars, 30 Ravager boarding pods approached in silence. The first warning came at 0400 station time. Proximity alarms screamed through corridors, waking everyone from sleep. Red emergency lights bathed every passage in blood-colored illumination. Automated defense systems engaged, tracking the incoming pods, firing desperately. But Ravager pods were designed to survive defensive fire. They were armored, shielded, and built for one purpose: getting inside. Diana was already moving before the announcement finished. She had been sleeping light, a soldier's habit that never fully disappeared. The Sayax was in her hand before her feet hit the floor. She pulled on boots and a jacket and ran for the human delegation quarters. Ambassador Patel met her in the corridor, looking terrified but determined. "How many?" "At least 30 pods based on the alarm pattern," Diana said. "Maybe 200 Ravagers total if they are fully loaded. Station security is about 300 personnel, but most are not trained for boarding actions. What do we do? We arm every human and prepare to defend." Diana was already sending messages on her communicator, emergency protocols she hoped she would never need to use. "Wake everyone. Military diplomatic support staff, everyone. Tell them to bring whatever weapons they have." "Weapons? We are a diplomatic mission. Did you bring a blade, Ambassador?" Patel hesitated, then nodded. "A kirpan. Traditional Sikh ceremonial dagger, but it is sharp and functional." "Good. Get it. Get everyone armed. Meet me at the council chamber in 5 minutes." The first Ravager pod hit the outer hull with a sound like thunder. Cutting torches began burning through reinforced metal. Security forces rushed to that sector, weapons ready, but everyone who had fought Ravagers before knew what was coming. The creatures were built for this kind of combat. Diana reached the human quarters and found organized chaos. 43 humans scrambling to prepare for battle. Security Officer Rodriguez was already distributing the weapons each human had quietly brought aboard. Diana smiled grimly. Old habits died hard. Every human carried a blade just in case. It was cultural memory, instinct, survival. "Listen up," Diana said loudly. "Ravagers are boarding. They fight in close quarters and they are good at it. But we are better. You all know basic combat techniques. Today we use them. We work in pairs, cover each other, and we do not let them push us into open areas where they can surround us." A young diplomat named Wilson looked terrified. "I have never fought anything. I analyzed trade agreements. You also trained in hand-to-hand combat in school," Diana said firmly. "Your body remembers, trust it. Stay with your partner and you will survive." The station shuddered as another pod attached. Cutting sounds echoed through the walls. Diana checked her communicator. Security feeds showed the first breach point about to fail. Time was up. "Move," she ordered. 43 humans ran through the corridors toward the council chamber. They passed security teams setting up defensive positions. Faustian guards looked confused seeing humans armed with knives and short swords instead of plasma rifles. One started to say something, but Diana cut him off. "Where is Admiral Krell?" "In the council chamber with Chancellor Bryn and other delegates. We have orders to defend that position." "Good. We are reinforcing you." The first breach happened as they reached the corridor outside the chamber. Metal screamed and tore. Atmosphere rushed out briefly before emergency seals activated. Through the gap came the Ravagers. They were nightmares made flesh. 6-limbed creatures with armored exoskeletons, each limb ending in razor-sharp claws. Their heads were mostly mouth filled with rows of serrated teeth. They moved like insects, fast and twitchy, able to run on walls and ceilings as easily as floors. They had been engineered or evolved for ship combat, and they were terrifyingly effective at it. The Vostian security team opened fire. Plasma bolts lit the corridor. Several Ravagers fell, their armor cracking under sustained fire. But plasma weapons in enclosed spaces were dangerous. Shots that missed could puncture hull sections. The security team had to aim carefully, which slowed their rate of fire. The Ravagers closed the distance fast. Too fast. 3 Vostian guards went down under slashing claws before they could adjust. The defensive line started to collapse. Diana did not think. She moved. The Sayax came up and she was among the Ravagers before they realized a human was attacking. Her blade found the joint where a Ravager's head connected to its body. The creature spasmed and fell. She was already moving to the next one. Rodriguez was beside her, machete in hand. He fought like someone who grew up on a rough frontier colony, which he had. His blade work was not elegant, but it was effective. Brutal strikes to joints and sensory organs. Ravagers fell. The other humans hit the fight like a wave. Suddenly, 40 humans with blades were in close combat with Ravagers designed to dominate close combat. And the Ravagers were losing. They did not understand. Prey was supposed to run. Prey was supposed to panic. These humans were attacking, working in coordinated pairs, covering each other, exploiting every gap in Ravager armor. It was not instinct. It was training and practice and cultural memory going back 10,000 years. A Ravager lunged at Wilson, the trade analyst who said he had never fought. Wilson's body moved before his conscious mind engaged. He sidestepped, redirected the lunge, and his short sword opened the creature's throat. He stared at the fallen Ravager in shock, then threw up. But he was alive and the Ravager was not. "Keep moving," Diana shouted. "Do not freeze. Stay mobile and watch your partners." The corridor became a killing ground. Faustian guards stopped firing, realizing the humans had the situation controlled. They watched in amazement as humans fought creatures that had overwhelmed trained security forces on a dozen stations. The humans were not stronger or faster, but they fought smarter. They used the environment, forcing Ravagers into bottlenecks where numbers became disadvantage instead of advantage. A second breach opened 30 meters down the corridor. More Ravagers poured through. Diana assessed quickly. If they reached the council chamber, everyone inside would die. "Rodriguez, take Team 1 and hold this position. Do not let anything past. I am taking Team 2 to that breach." "How many in Team 2? 6. Enough." Rodriguez looked like he wanted to argue, then nodded. "Do not die, Captain." "Not planning on it." Diana moved toward the new breach with 5 other humans. They hit the Ravagers from the side, blades flashing in emergency lighting. It was brutal work, exhausting and terrifying, but they held. The Ravagers tried to adapt, tried to surround them, but humans had fought surrounded before. In human military history, last stands and desperate defenses were common. Humans knew how to fight when retreat was not an option. Inside the council chamber, Admiral Krell watched security feeds with growing disbelief. Humans were holding corridors that should have fallen immediately. His own guards had been pushed back by Ravager assaults, yet humans with primitive weapons were winning. "How?" one of his officers asked. "They have no armor, no advanced weapons. How do they fight like that?" "Because they are not fighting," Krell said quietly. "They are hunting. Look at their movements. They are not defending. They are killing." He was right. The humans fought with confidence that came from practice. Every movement was economical, precise, deadly. They did not waste energy on dramatic strikes or unnecessary movements. They simply killed efficiently and moved to the next threat. In one corridor, a Ravager managed to wound a human badly, claws opening a deep cut on her arm. The woman did not scream or fall back. She switched her blade to her other hand and killed the Ravager that hurt her. Only then did she allow someone to help her to medical treatment. 2 hours into the battle, the tide turned. Ravagers started avoiding corridors where humans fought. They adapted their attack patterns, trying to find routes with less resistance. But humans were everywhere, blocking access to critical areas, driving Ravagers into zones where station security could use ranged weapons safely. Diana was exhausted. The Sayax felt heavy in her hand, her muscles burning with fatigue. She had lost count of how many Ravagers she had killed. Around her, the other humans looked equally drained, but they kept fighting. Stopping meant dying, so they did not stop. A Ravager dropped from a ceiling vent, landing directly behind Diana. She had no time to turn, but Rodriguez was there, his machete taking the creature's head off in one powerful swing. Diana nodded thanks, and they continued fighting. The last Ravager fell 3 hours after the first breach. Station security teams cleared the pods, ensuring no more threats remained. Silence settled over Council Station, broken only by emergency announcements and the sound of wounded being moved to medical facilities. Diana leaned against a wall, breathing hard. The Sayax was covered in Ravager blood, the blade notched from hitting armor repeatedly. Around her, humans slumped in exhaustion, 17 wounded, 3 dead. But they had held. The Ravagers had been stopped. Admiral Krell emerged from the council chamber with his guards. He walked slowly through the corridors, looking at the Ravager bodies, at the human defenders, at the evidence of what had happened. His expression was unreadable. He stopped in front of Diana. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, warrior to warrior. Then Krell bowed, all 4 arms crossing over his chest in the Vostian sign of ultimate respect. "Your people died defending my life," he said quietly. "Humans who owed me nothing, who I insulted and dismissed, stood between me and death. I have no words sufficient to honor that sacrifice." Diana straightened, fighting exhaustion. "Your people would have done the same, Admiral. Would we?" Krell looked at his guards. "I am not certain anymore. We have not faced real threat in generations. We forgot what it means to fight desperately, to look death in the eye and strike back anyway. We forgot because we could forget. You never could. That is not weakness, Admiral. That is civilization. Be grateful you could forget." Krell nodded slowly. "But now we must remember. The Ravagers will not stop. They will attack again, and next time we must be ready." He looked at the human defenders, at their simple blades and determined faces. "Will you teach us? Will you help us remember how to fight when retreat is not an option?" Diana thought about the 3 humans who died in the fighting. Good people who never wanted to hurt anyone but fought anyway because others needed protecting. She thought about her brother on the frontier, fighting every day to keep his colony safe. She thought about humanity's long bloody history and the choice to be better. "Yes," she said, "we will teach you, but not to be like us. We will teach you to survive. There is a difference." "What difference?" "Humans survive because we have to. We want you to survive because you deserve to." Krell considered this. "And you? What do humans deserve?" Diana smiled tiredly. "The same thing everyone deserves. A chance to live without fear. A chance to build instead of destroy. A chance to be more than our worst impulses." She looked at the Sayax in her hand. "We carry these blades to remember what we were. We put them away to remember what we want to be. Today we picked them up again because people needed protecting. Tomorrow, maybe we can put them down again. And if tomorrow brings more Ravagers, then we pick the blades up again." Diana sheathed the Sayax. "That is what humans do, Admiral. We survive, we adapt, we protect, and we never ever give up." Medical teams arrived, taking the wounded to treatment. Cleanup crews began the grim work of removing bodies, both Ravager and the 3 fallen humans. Security forces established new defensive positions, paranoid about another attack. Diana found a quiet corner and sat down heavily. She was too tired to move, too wired to rest. Around her, other humans dealt with the aftermath of combat in their own ways. Some talked quietly, some sat in silence, some cried. All of them had fought and survived. Ambassador Patel found her there an hour later. He looked older, marked by the terror of the attack and the reality of human violence. He sat beside Diana without speaking for a while. "I spent my career promoting peace," he finally said. "Convincing the galaxy that humans were not a threat, that we had evolved beyond violence." "We have," Diana said. "We choose peace every day. Choosing peace when you are capable of violence is much harder than being peaceful because you have no choice. The galaxy knows now. They saw what we can do. Good. Maybe now they will stop seeing us as weak." Diana closed her eyes. "I am tired, Ambassador. Tired of pretending. Tired of hiding what we are. We are dangerous. We have always been dangerous. But we are also kind and compassionate, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. Both things are true. The galaxy needs to understand that. Patel nodded slowly. What happens now? Now we teach them. Now we help them prepare. And now we hope that next time, fewer people have to die. She thought about the 3 humans who would never go home, about the families who would receive notifications, about the cost of being warriors in a galaxy that needed warriors but did not want to admit it. The Sayax hung at her belt, still marked with blood. Tomorrow she would clean it properly, maintain it, care for it. But tonight she just wanted to rest and remember why humans fought in the first place. Not for glory, not for conquest, not even for themselves. They fought so others could sleep safely. And that made all the difference. 1 week after the Ravager assault, the Galactic Council reconvened in a chamber that still bore scorch marks from the fighting. Repair crews had worked around the clock, but evidence of combat remained visible on walls and floors. The delegates gathered in unusual silence. No one complained about minor discomforts. Everyone remembered hiding while humans fought and died protecting them. High Chancellor Bryn opened the session without ceremony. The Ravager threat continues across multiple sectors. 17 more attacks reported in the last week. However, we now understand our enemy better. More importantly, we understand ourselves better. He gestured to Diana. Captain Ross, please present your proposal. Diana stood, wearing her dress uniform rather than combat gear. The Sayax remained at her belt, though. She would not remove it again. The galaxy had seen what humans were, and hiding it served no purpose anymore. The proposal is simple, Diana said. Humanity offers to establish close combat training units across the galaxy. We will train volunteers from any species in techniques for fighting in enclosed spaces. We will also deploy human rapid response teams to ships and stations that request protection. These teams will specialize in countering boarding actions. A Thelian delegate raised a tentacle nervously. You want us to train our people to be as violent as humans? Diana shook her head. No, we are offering to stand between you and violence. Teaching your people to defend themselves is secondary. Our primary role is protection. Why? The Thelian seemed genuinely confused. Why would humans risk their lives protecting other species? What do you gain? Because that is what we do, Diana said simply. Humans protect those who cannot protect themselves. It is in our nature. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other and we hated it. When we finally achieved peace, we promised ourselves we would use our capabilities for protection, not conquest. This is us keeping that promise. Admiral Krell stood, commanding attention. The chamber quieted immediately. His opinion carried enormous weight among military-focused species. What he said next would influence the entire debate. I mocked humanity, Krell said, his voice carrying through the chamber. I called them weak. I said they lacked warrior spirit. I was wrong. Humans are not weak, they are disciplined. He paused, all 4 eyes focused on Diana. Humanity possesses combat capabilities beyond what most species imagine. They developed these abilities out of necessity, surviving on a world that wanted them dead. They perfected violence because their opponents were as intelligent and adaptable as they were. And when they achieved peace, they made a choice. They set aside weapons that made them the apex predators of their world. Not because they were weak, but because they were too strong. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Krell had just endorsed humanity publicly, completely reversing his earlier position. During the attack on this station, I watched humans fight, Krell continued. They did not fight with joy or rage. They fought with determination and purpose. 3 humans died defending people they barely knew, species they had no obligation to protect. That is not weakness. That is honor. That is exactly what the galaxy needs. He looked directly at the Thelian delegate who questioned human motives. You ask what humans gain by protecting us? Nothing material. They gain the knowledge that they use their dangerous capabilities for good rather than evil. For a species haunted by their violent history, that means everything. Ambassador Patel stood, activating a display. Admiral Krell is correct, but the situation is more urgent than he describes. Human frontier colonies have been fighting Ravagers for 8 months. We did not report it because we handled it internally, but the data needs to be shared. Statistics filled the display. Combat reports from 20 human colonies. Casualty numbers, victory rates, tactical analyses. The numbers told a clear story. Humans were winning against Ravagers more often than any other species. In close quarters, combat against Ravagers, human victory rate is 73%, Patel said. Other species average 12% in similar circumstances. The difference is training and instinct. Humans evolved fighting in environments that rewarded close combat skills. Other species evolved in environments that favored different strategies. A Quellan counselor studied the data carefully. These victory rates come at significant human cost. Your casualties are high. Yes, Diana said. Fighting Ravagers in close quarters is deadly work. We lose people every engagement, but we win more than we lose, and we stop the Ravagers from killing everyone. That is the trade. We accept casualties to achieve victory. Why accept such costs? Another delegate asked. Why not withdraw and let automated defenses handle threats? Diana was quiet for a moment. Because we remember what happens when good people do nothing. Human history is full of moments when people chose safety over action. Those moments never ended well. We learned that lesson through blood and fire. We will not repeat it. The chamber fell silent. Every species present understood moral weight when they heard it. Humanity was offering to be the galaxy's shield, knowing that shields got battered and broken. They were volunteering for a role that would cost human lives, asking nothing in return except the chance to protect others. High Chancellor Bryn spoke carefully. This council was founded on cooperation and trust. Today we face a choice. Do we accept humanity's offer? Do we trust them with the role of protectors? Do we allow them to teach our people their combat methods? And if we refuse, a delegate asked. Then the Ravagers continue winning, Krell said bluntly. They board ships and kill crews. They attack stations and slaughter everyone aboard. Current defensive strategies are failing. Humanity offers a solution. We can accept it, or we can continue losing. A young delegate from a species Diana did not recognize stood hesitantly. I have a question for Captain Ross. You said humans are ashamed of their violent history. If we accept your help, if you teach us to fight, are you not returning to that violence? Does that not betray your promise to be better? Diana smiled sadly. That is a good question, and the answer is complicated. She thought about her grandmother, about the sword passed down through generations, about the weight of history. Humans chose peace because we understood the cost of violence. We put our weapons away because we knew what they could do. But we never promised to let others die while we stood aside. Peace does not mean passive acceptance of evil. She drew the sayax, holding it up for everyone to see. This blade is 10 centuries old. Vikings carried it for fishing and farming and defending their families. Same tool, different purposes. The blade itself is neutral. What matters is the hand that wields it and the reason it is drawn.